One thing that I actually wanted to discuss was a vision that I had that actually occurred to me to talk about yesterday, and it was actually very astounding. It actually kind of had me a little bit floored for a second because this time last year, it was about August 19th. It was 2 days before I came to Minnesota the first time, and my life changed as I knew it. I had an out of body experience, but I was still awake on this side, so it was the first time that it happened. It was like a major remote viewing experience that I had. And I was floating through space, and all of a sudden, I saw these colors like forming. And some of them were otherworldly, but the main colors were magenta and purple. But in between that was a fetus just being shifted and created in the middle of this empty place with maybe far with distant stars. And it was very strange, and it kind of freaked me out at first because, again, I didn't know what was happening. Even though, I've had psychic visions and I've had things where I've had astral travel before, but for me to be in another place altogether while I was physically awake here, that is what had me very concerned. See, before that, about a few months before that, I started having what I didn't understand. I was having all these panic attacks and physical anomalies. I wasn't able to sleep for weeks at a time, not knowing what it was. I went into a major depression, but also that was around the time I had stopped taking medication, so I thought that I was going crazy from that and that it was just side effects, but it was increasing my psychic abilities to a point where I felt like I had become a radio. I was doing readings at Marie Laveau's. I was doing up to anywhere between 5 to 15 readings a day for tourists, but they were very on point, and that's how I knew that I was mentally, even though I felt crazy, I wasn't. And the reason why was because the readings were exactly the same how I was channeling those frequencies. And I was having a lot of sleep paralysis and also a lot of physical symptoms too, where I kept feeling very sick. The one thing that has started to actually make all of it come together, though, was right when I came here to Minnesota, it all started to make more sense. But I would start talking to my friends and also a few people that I also know who are psychics in the business, and they were having the same exact visions that I was having. And it was very interesting because we were starting to notice that we were on the same frequency, and I was also on the same frequency with all of my clients that I was getting. These were people that all of a sudden I knew their names before they came in. I knew who they were going to be. Sometimes I would even dream about them before they would show up. And some of these people are people that never would have trusted a psychic or even gone and seen one, but they would find me. And they all actually had these shared experiences and these shared dreams. Like, I didn't mention this to them, but they were actually mentioning it to me and asking me what it was. And that's when I started to notice that that's what Ascension was looking like, but also it was what it was doing to all these people, all having the same physical symptoms. Some people really got very ill, and to some of them, some people didn't necessarily survive because they descended, like I talked about yesterday. But everything that I was seeing, I finally decided to talk about with Jillian and Michael yesterday. And it turns out that Michael also had this vision, and it was actually brought on by a QHHT session. And in that QHHT session, he saw the same exact things that I saw, down to the colors, down to the fetus, and it was on August 19th. And so we had this vision the same day, the same remote out of body experience, and I do feel that maybe them going into that session is exactly what kicked it off, because I've noticed that I had a lot of synchronicities with these two, especially. I mean, I've only known them for a month, but It feels like I've known them. Well, I have. I've known them many lives. And, for the longest time, I used to think that I was crazy or something was wrong with me. But then when I started noticing that so many other people were having the same thing, it stopped feeling so crazy. And that's when everything started to finally come out and make sense. But also, it's what I'm seeing now that I do believe that that is like a major metaphor for the creation of a new world almost. But also, it's a new form of state of mind, new era. It is kind of giving birth to that new idea, but also that collective consciousness. And a few other practitioners that I have worked with over time, we would talk about what was that fetus, and it really did feel like it was being created for, basically, kind of like how Dolores Cannon would talk about a new Earth. But it's kind of like it could be here, it could be up there. It's the as above, so below, on earth as it is in the heavens. And, I'm not necessarily like, going to go into religious dogma, but every religion has predicted this. Not just Christianity. I mean, Buddhism, all of them, literally, Hindu beliefs, every single last one, talking about all of that. And I really do feel like that's what this convergence is. And the reason why I am doing this video is because I think that more people have had the same kind of vision or similar, and it is kind of like a reach out to let people know, like, hey, maybe we should talk about this, because a lot of the stuff that I started seeing last year is happening now. And the physical symptoms, definitely. It started off as a major tightness in my chest, constant panic attacks. I wasn't able to sleep. I felt sick all the time, and I felt like I was going to have a heart attack or a seizure. It was not fun. And I would get this numbness on the side of my face, and I would literally think that maybe high blood pressure, something else, but I mean, I would see doctors, they would say there's nothing wrong, that it must be psychosomatic or just anxiety. But even when I would take the anxiety medication, this wouldn't make these visions or these feelings go away. And so it was one of those situations where I start to see these things now, and I pay attention to them because that's what my job is to kind of like, I've been studying people while I was a reader, studying behaviors, patterns, and also taking note, and sometimes even asking some of my clients if I could record the sessions, the channeling sessions especially, because I was noticing that we are all on this major thread. It's like I said, before I even came here, again, before I came back, it was strange because all these clients who did not know who I was or even that they were looking for me were all coming into my office, and they were from this specific area that I'm in now. And all these people that I would start reading were also 6 degrees of separation, and then it became 3 degrees of separation connected to everybody that I was reading, and all having this dream of the new universe that was being born, and also the fetus, all around the same time. Because I did kind of wonder, but I didn't know the exact date until I looked back and realized it was the same day that Michael and Julian were doing a hypnosis session and going into a channeling. One thing is like, you look at people do like hypnosis for like, healing, and also for past life regression, and that's what I was also doing. I do past life readings and past life healings. But what I've been also noticing is people are just coming in and collectively remembering, but also it's like we can connect on that level. Yesterday, what kind of triggered some things with Michael was me, Misty, and Julian were doing some singing bowls, and we were just doing the practice session for what we're going to be doing on a broader scale with a lot of members of our group. But it actually triggered the same ascension symptoms in Michael. got him right here in the chest, and it went into his feet. It went everywhere, all over him, and he started having the visions again, and that's why it's actually important to talk about this. In fact, that's why Jillian asked me to do this video, because it is kind of like one of those where things are falling into place. People are finding us and having these collective experiences, and yes, we used to think that we were fucking batshit crazy, all of us. I tried to put myself in hospitals, everything, because I thought something was wrong with me. But when I started realizing that there was nothing wrong with me, I started to realize that there was something right in all of this with all of us, and the visions are definitely true. Because even as a psychic and professional medium my entire life and a practitioner of the occult, I didn't believe in all of this. And not to this degree. I used to think people that would talk about this stuff were crazy, but ever since it's happened in these last 3 years, especially with my experience and my travel to the other side because of, my destruction in the past, I see that it is a collective consciousness and shared experience, and that is why I think these visions are definitely kind of leading us all to that. Whether those visions are completely literal, and it is in fact something over there, or whether this is just a part of our consciousness and it is just kind of giving birth to a new era, which is how a lot of these visions will come. They will come in the form of metaphor. But also, that is kind of like maybe the point. Maybe we are supposed to connect on that level. And for those chakra sounds that we did with Michael last night, we didn't even mean to. It just triggers this. So there is something to the tones and the frequencies. Because ever since I traveled to that side last year and saw this, it has gotten me into the tones and the frequencies. And ever since I started the experimentations, I started to see some serious results. Portal opening. I started to finally realize that was the missing ingredient, as I was always lacking in the sound, and then therefore if we can connect it on a level to that kind of consciousness, as well as what we have and what we can do with all of that, with the singing bowls, the tones, the frequencies all over, maybe it can actually spread that spirituality and also spread that energy. Because that is another thing. You push energy into these things, we manifest, we create. And I mean, these things have moved. They've been using tones and frequencies ever since the beginning of time to open portals, to actually connect, and everything really being right here. I mean, on earth as it is in heaven, as above, so below. Whether it is like, again, it's not about the religious aspect. I'm not here to talk about that. But I am talking about how all these belief systems all have that one common thread. The only thing that is dividing them is the name. And honestly, it was never really a name at all if you want to go into that. It was always just the breath of life. But that is another story for another time. And I think that's kind of going into why I call it the sewing of the souls. Because it is literally understanding and stitching yourself back together while you are also weaving yourself together with others that you probably never even thought you'd be able to connect with and talk to, realizing that they are in fact just another form of you. Okay, anyways, thank you for listening, and I hope that you all have a good day. And also, I do want to hear your thoughts and see if maybe you have had similar experiences. So please comment and we can talk about this further.